हाय हेलो नमस्कार दोस्तों, कैसे हो आप। तो दोस्तों यहाँ पे आज इस वीडियो के अंदर हम बात करने वाले हैं डॉक्टर परविंदर कौर से। तो दोस्तों यहाँ पे डॉक्टर परविंदर कौर जो है वो यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ वेस्टर्न ऑस्ट्रेलिया पर्थ के अंदर जो है वहाँ पे एसोसिएट प्रोफेसर है और एक रिसर्च साइंटिस्ट है, अवार्ड विनिंग जो है साइंटिस्ट है दोस्तों। और यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं उन्होंने जो है क्या क्या एक्सपीरियंसेस की है, क्या क्या पढ़ाई की है। तो यहाँ पे उन्होंने ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर जो है 2007-2010 के बीच में जो है पीएचडी करी है। तो हम पीएचडी के बारे में भी काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन करने वाले हैं कि कोर्स वर्क विथ मतलब पीएचडी विथ कोर्स वर्क और विदाउट कोर्स वर्क पे जो है क्या फ़ायदा है, क्या क्या बेनिफिट्स है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर पीएचडी करना है तो क्या बेनिफिट्स है, क्या क्या अपॉर्चुनिटीज़ है वो भी हम देखेंगे। यहाँ पे उन्होंने जो है आप देख सकते हैं कि एडिटर इन चीफ है स्प्रिंगर नेचर ग्रुप के अंदर। उसके अलावा जो है एक्स प्लांटा करके है, उसके अंदर डायरेक्टर चीफ साइंटिस्ट ऑफिसर है, को फाउंडर भी है। तो ये भी काफ़ी एक बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है दोस्तों, इनिशिएटिव है ऐसा भी बोल सकते हैं। और यूनिवर्सिटी ऑफ वेस्टर्न ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर आप देख सकते हैं कि बायोटेक्नोलॉजी के प्रोफेसर है दोस्तों 11 साल से जो है अप्रोक्सीमेटली 12 साल समझ लीजिए वहाँ पे वो जो है रिसर्च एंड पढ़ाई जो है दोनों करवाती है। तो यहाँ पे डायरेक्टर है डीएनए जू ऑस्ट्रेलिया के अंदर 4 साल से। उसके अलावा फाउंडर एंड चेयर है वेस्टर्न ऑस्ट्रेलिया जीनोम एटलास। तो दोस्तों इन्होंने जो है ना एक्चुअल में पंजाब यूनिवर्सिटी से जो है एग्रीकल्चर में पढ़ाई की थी, बट धीरे धीरे जो है वो शिफ्ट हुआ था उनका और जो है बायोलॉजी सेक्टर के अंदर जो है वो जो है शिफ्ट हो गई थी। तो ये भी एक काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग जो है डिस्कशन है। और इसके बारे में एक और जो है यहाँ पे इंटरव्यू भी इनका हुआ था, वहाँ पे भी उन्होंने ये सब चीज़ें जो है बताई थी। उसके अलावा यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं मेंबर है पाथवे टू डाइवर्सिटी इन स्टेम रिव्यू एक्सपर्ट पैनल। तो ये काफ़ी इन्होंने जो है मतलब अचीव चीज़ें करी है, तो इनसे बहुत सारी चीज़ें आप सीख सकते हैं। तो यहाँ पे जो है अगर आपको इनके कुछ इंटरव्यूज़ जो है स्टडी करने हैं मतलब देखने हैं तो आप देख सकते हैं, बहुत सारे इंटरव्यूज़ इनके हुए हैं यहाँ पे। तो ये आप ज़रूर से एक बार चेकआउट करिएगा, आपको काफ़ी नॉलेज जो है इसमें से मिल सकता है दोस्तों। और हम जो है कोशिश करेंगे कि यहाँ पे जो डिस्कशन हो चुका है उसके अलावा हम कुछ उनसे नॉलेज गेन करने की जो है कोशिश करें। यहाँ पे आप देख सकते हैं कि क्या बोलते हैं रिसर्च गेट के अंदर जो है अप्रोक्सीमेटली 92 के आसपास जो है इनके पब्लिकेशन या तो रिसर्च पेपर्स जो इन्होंने पब्लिश करे हैं। उसके अलावा डीएनए जू जो है ये भी काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग इनिशिएटिव है। एक्चुअल में ये वाले इंटरव्यू के अंदर इसका हमने ज़्यादा कवर अप नहीं किया है, तो उसका इंटरव्यू का पार्ट 2 भी बनेगा जिसके अंदर थोड़ा सा डीएनए जू के बारे में भी डिस्कशन करेंगे। तो यहाँ पे जो है एक बोल सकते हैं ओपन सोर्स डीएनए की जो है एक अलग अलग जो क्या बोलते हैं कि हमारे जीव जंतु प्राणी वगैरह है, प्लांट है, तो उनके डीएनएस जो है उसके ऊपर ये लोग रिसर्च करके और डेटा जो है पब्लिश करते हैं ओपन स्पेस के अंदर। तो ये भी काफ़ी इंटरेस्टिंग है। उसके बाद यहाँ पे जो है ये क्या बोलते हैं कि सिंथेटिक बायोलॉजी के रिलेटेड जो है इनका कुछ काम है। तो इसके ऊपर भी पूरी एक ये जो है ऑर्गेनाइजेशन या तो कंपनी जो है चला रहे हैं। और यहाँ पे जो है वो आर्टिकल्स वगैरह जो है रिसर्च वर्क यहाँ पे करती है। तो बहुत सारा इनका जो है क्या बोलते हैं कि काम है। अब एक व्यक्ति इतना सारा काम कैसे मैनेज करती है और फिर भी जो है इन्होंने हमारे लिए एक टाइम निकाला है, बहुत बड़ी बात है। तो इससे आपको पता लगेगा कि कितने ग्राउंड टू अर्थ है और अपना नॉलेज शेयर करने के लिए हमेशा जो है ना मैंने मतलब जैसे ही इनको कांटेक्ट किया तुरंत मुझे रिप्लाई आ गया कि भाई चलो इंटरव्यू करते हैं। अदरवाइज़ यार इंडिया के अंदर किसी आईआईटी या प्रोफेसर को अगर आप इस तरीके से कांटेक्ट करेंगे तो जॉब भी नहीं देंगे, अपॉइंटमेंट भी नहीं देंगे। बट इन्होंने इतनी बड़ी चीज़ें अचीव करी है फिर भी अपॉइंटमेंट दिया है। तो चलिए दोस्तों इनके साथ जो भी हमारा इंटरेस्टिंग डिस्कशन हुआ है उसको शुरू करते हैं। चलिए मिलते हैं इनके इंटरव्यू के अंदर।
So basically, we will start with a PhD section. So in India, a lot of people don't do PhD or they have a they're afraid and things like that. So what is the difference in doing PhD in maybe in India or Australia? What kind of approach? Because as an example, a lot of people do PSc and MSc in different science field, but after that they start finding the clerical jobs like clerk jobs because
Yes.
they have not any kind of vision or PhD is maybe 5-6 years dedication to finish and achieve something. So what is your experience and which kind of students come to you, which kind of topics they come with to do research, or how to find a research topic if someone want to do in PhD in maybe in India or Australia as well?
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Um, all right. So this is a really, really good question, Jay, if I may say, because yes, PhDs, when we think of a 5-year commitment at the prime time of your life, when you could be actually going out there and getting a real industry experience and working and earning, and to rather than choose a PhD, which is, fully dedicating yourself to a particular research topic and diving deep into that space. It is a big commitment at the very important time of your life. So I can talk from my experience. When I was in India, I also followed a very traditional pathway to the education system, do a bachelor's. I did a bachelor's of honors in agriculture, specializing in the plant protection space. And then the option presented to me was either go and work for the industry, which a lot of my fellow peers did. They went into the banking sector, into the agriculture development officers and all. But I was very intrigued what I learned at a very surface level doing my honors year, which was the final year, and I really wanted to dive a little bit more deeper and understand and unpack that. And that led for me to go into the academia in the master's space, and I choose entomology as my major and pathology as my minor. But after that, my curiosity was there, and how much I would have loved to go and work in that sector. I was still like, I need to answer some more questions, and I wanted to broaden my horizons a little bit in terms of not just focusing on one major or minor, but I wanted to take a little bit more holistic approach where you get to parachute out of a discipline and see the problem for what the problem is, but then also have all the freedom to go across different disciplines to really bring it all together. And unpack it and also find some solutions. That was really not possible for me in the Indian education system and the way it is set up, because our system there allows us to only narrow and narrow and narrow your focus as you progress in your academic journey, but not like really go across different disciplines. So that was a dead end for me. And another thing was also a 5-year commitment. Was a very scary commitment for me. And one thing I did not agree with and I still do not agree with that education system where you're doing a degree for research, right? But you're still expected to do so much coursework that you really don't justify diving deep into the area of actually answering the questions or doing the full-on R&D and immerse yourself into that. Which is how the Indian system is set up, which is based on the American system. So America has got exactly the same system. So that made me reflect and go around a little bit globally, that what are the different sort of philosophies out there and what are the opportunities. And that was the time when I happened to learn about the Australian system. So in Australia, the PhDs are maximum 3.5 to 4 years, and most of the PhDs are under the scholarship category. So over 90% people who do PhDs in Australia actually come through a scholarship pathway. So basically, you are treated like a faculty, but you're 100% immersed into the research sector, which means that you don't have any coursework to do, which is like obligation or mandatory. But if you do think that, this is a subject area that can actually facilitate answering my question or provide me the skill set that I need to use to immerse myself in answering this particular question of research, then you are always welcome to register for that course and actually go on that journey of coursework. But that is a complete option here. It's no mandatory. That was like, wow, this is exactly what I needed. And I applied for the scholarship. I got through in the very first time, and I am here today on that journey, and it has given me immense freedom, in intellectual freedom in terms of, and also freedom to go across different disciplines. So and I'm a big advocate for, like, whatever level of study you're doing in your life, whether you are in a primary school or you are in a PhD position, it is really important that we champion problem solvers in our education system rather than just breed, some white collar job seekers, because that's not going to get humanity anywhere, and that's not going to solve the challenges that we like to solve using our education system and make scholars in that area.
And
I hope that I've answered your question.
yeah, I understand. And how this research industry work, and what is the difference in we can say industrial research? They also do research, like right, in different sectors, and how academic research or we can say universities do research. What is the difference in approach in both, and how they survive? Like as an example, maybe you have published approximately 90 plus different paper works on ResearchGate. So how university earn money or generate money from this kind of research work? So what is the approach?
Sure. So basically, I have done fundamental academic research that has led to a lot of industrial applications, and that's where I have actually sort of gone into more application domain and working with the industry rather than just keeping the pathway of the traditional research. So if you look at it from my perspective, I do not see a difference between what is research at first place. If we just go down to the bottom of it, why do we do research? We do research to solve problems, right? Which are existing. And research career actually teaches you how to strategically define the problems, identify the gaps, which are existing, and then how to approach it, in different ways, writing a hypothesis to testing that hypothesis to validating that and putting more data behind solving that particular question. So that is what research is. And it's just, we've divided into many different sectors, but at the end of the day, the fundamental purpose for us to do the research, whether we are in academia or in industry R&D, is to solve a question, right? And I strongly advocate for asking the questions that that really need to be answered, and not just in the academic sector, because all the fundamental or the academic research that happens to generate either a new industry in 10 years down the track or solve the problems of the existing industry. So we just need to look at it that way. And I have focused myself on not just developing the tools in the fundamental space, but also keeping in mind and keeping in real time, in sort of aligned to the current existing problems, which the humanity is facing. TNSU is a good example, and open access research is another thing. That's why if you make your research available open access, then it's more available to industry to be able to apply to how they are trying to solve the problem, and you bring a lot many more people on that journey to use your research. So so mostly the fundamental, if we talk about Australia, the fundamental research is normally supported through the Australian Research Council, ARC, for anything which is non-medical, but everything medical related is funded through the NHMRC. These are the two main funding bodies for the research, academic research in Australia. Whereas there is also a lot of opportunities when you work directly with the industry, and that is what my key area of focus has been, to work directly with the industry, because I want to work with the problems that are in hand now rather than trying to solve a problem which might come through in next 20 years of time. So I've just been focusing more on the current space, and that's allowed me to be funded by not just the academic research councils, but also industry directly, corporate partners, and a lot of philanthropy.
And do they, as an example, there are like music available. So when we use music in our projects, so we need to pay royalties. So is this same kind of things happen in the research work? Like if they are using research in their some project, they need to pay royalty to maybe university or maybe researcher. How it works?
Yeah, no, exactly. So that is exactly what I am trying to change, at least in my research, that everything I release from my research is under Creative Commons 4.40 license, so that anybody can replicate and use it without having to come back and pay the royalties. Because research, in my eyes, is a service to the humanity, and we can't do service if we are putting royalties behind it. So, but yes, it is the case. Photography, any pieces of art or any pieces of research innovation normally is behind the paywalls, including even the papers we publish. They are behind the paywalls of different journals who are making millions of dollars out of it.
Oh, so from your
Yeah.
research work, they will earn money by
Yes,
providing.
yes,
Okay.
that is, yeah. So all the journals that have got fees, so you have to subscribe to those journals. The research is not readily available in a lot of
Okay.
cases. So, research is done, or the research is funded through the taxpayers' money, and it is least accessible to the taxpayers because then they have to pay another dollar to be able to access research. And I do not agree with that. So that's why whatever I'm doing, I'm trying to push it in the open access space so everybody can access it, use it, and then move it forward.
Okay, and actually, we have seen a lot of movies which are based on, we can say, DNA modification or something like that. So they are saying a lot of one thing that gamma radiation, effect of gamma radiation. So how it affect maybe DNA or how it works. As an example, in Hulk movie or Spider-Man movies, they keep saying this thing to give effect of other species DNA in man. So they use gamma radiation. So how it works, if you know anything about it.
So yeah, no, I mean, that is not the key focus of my research, but what happens is, like, we all evolve, and our DNA, or what we see as, organisms or humans or any species, we are a result of our genetics interacting with the environment. And in my field, it is called as epigenetics. Okay, so epigenetics is G by E effect. And when you talk about gamma radiation or any kind of radiations, they are that E, the environment. So when you will expose any genetics or any DNA to any environment, that is going to have some sort of an effect, right? And what happens with gamma radiation and all these extreme harsh environments is they introduce mutations. So the DNA or the genetics of an organism trying to position itself to be able to handle that and still survive that. And that requires sometimes moving around quite a lot of genetic bits. And that is exactly what mutations are. And mutations introduce an effect on the genetics, and you might see, the movies show it at a very enhanced scale. But there is we like every environment we are going to is introducing mutations in us, in very subtle ways, and sometimes it's too extreme, and it comes like an X-Men series, in the way you see in the movies. But that is exactly what epigenetics is.
And how farmers can get help with this kind of research, because in India, maybe people who study agriculture, they don't go for farming because it's very hard work.
Yeah.
So how Australian farmers do farming? Are they first study farming and then go for farming, or how it works, or which kind of information they have access? And one another thing is that whatever the research you do, or we can say modification of, or we can say some mistakes, or some kind of improvement you do in any kind of seed or plant. So how that seed will go into the market, and then farmers start planting it, get the uh, results. So what is the whole process, or we can say what are the pros and cons of doing this kind of thing as well, if we.
Okay. So it's a very broad question, and if you allow me to bring you a little bit back in terms of the research and what can be enabled in the farming sector or in the agriculture community first. So we know that, there is less and less water available. There's so many droughts that are happening, and there's new kinds of, climate that the plants need to adapt to, or our agriculture need to adapt to. And the nutrients are draining down. The soils are not as enriched as they used to be 10 years back. And the number of people who need food have increased by 70, by millions actually, and there is a 70% rise in the demand of the food by 2050 to feed the 10 billion people. So all these things are putting a lot of constraint on how we need to look at agriculture, and you will see a lot of change in the practices. And one of the changes that we've seen India as a country has seen this beautiful transformation happen with the green revolution. We used to depend as a nation on America and other countries to provide us food, and then the whole high yielding varieties came, and the whole scenario changed. We are not just even producing enough for feeding our own country, but we are actually, in surplus, and we are exporting. So this is what has happened with the research and the high yielding varieties that have come, right? And how is that working is you understand the genetics of those plants, and then you choose the best stocks, and then you cross them, and then that's called traditional plant breeding, right? Mm-hmm. And that's how the new varieties or the high yielding varieties were introduced. But we're kind of like reaching a bit of a plateau in that space, that what could have been achieved using the traditional ways of doing the breeding in the plant space. So now with all the latest technological advancements, it has provided us an opportunity that we can actually start to do some very precise level of, breeding using the genetic modifications and bioengineering opportunities that we've got. And not just that, I have my own startup where I've learned from plants how to produce these really rare biomolecules, which are very, very important for human health. But plants only produce those biomolecules when they are attacked by either they don't have the right kind of environment, or they're attacked by some insect or pest. So it's like a defense reaction of a plant, and it's very tiny amounts. But because it's got such a huge demand in the human space, so how can we sort of produce that in a high amount? You definitely can't do that by growing those plants in hectares of land and then harvesting tiny amounts. Would that be the right use of your resources in terms of the environmental and the land and the resources you're putting in there? Probably not. So what we've done is it's about 10 genes or a network in the plant that is producing that biomolecule, and there is a trigger to that, which is a defense, right? So we've learned that from how the plant is doing it, taken that genetic network or a pathway, put it in a yeast, which is like brewing beer, brewing, your dough, making in the bakery industry, making paneer or yeast is responsible for all of doing. So now what we do is you feed the yeast some sugar, which is what the food of the yeast is, and then in a little Petri plate or a little cell factory we have created to produce those biomolecules at a very high titer. Mm-hmm. So this is what the knowledge of genetics and the application of genetics can enable for humankind, and we can look into a more cleaner and a greener future by being able to deploy these technologies into our agriculture sector and also our food production sector.
So maybe can we say that it's a kind of vaccination of plants? Kind of.
It's not a vaccination, so it's not done in the plant. So we've learned it from the plant. It's very similar to how we produce insulin. People with diabetes, they need insulin injections, and that insulin is harvested from certain kinds of mechanisms or animals. But then nowadays the insulin is produced synthetically, which is outside any living organism, and that is exactly what I'm talking about, producing these biomolecules, which I'm producing as well. So it can be learned from any organism how that living or life form is doing it, and then we can use these little microbial cell factories, which is yeast, bacteria, and algae. They can actually help us harness that potential. And you don't need to actually grow it in hectares of land, because you need to grow food which we cannot produce like this, the wheat, the bread, and all those kind of, and the vegetables and the fruits. It's a better use of the land rather than, this. So this can be used in a different setting and still can be accessed. So technology is enabling all of that. It's really interesting. it's going to be a great future. I have never worried about being in agriculture that we are not going to have enough food. We're going to have plenty of food, and we're going to have access to all the best practices, but we just need to have a mind shift and open ourselves up to the what the technology has to offer.
So can we say that maybe in future we don't need honeybees or to get this kind of food, or we can, what is the procedure? I forget the name.
So if you talk about honey,
Honeybees.
yes, in future there will, in future there will be definitely ways to do the products like which the honeybees are only able to do, but we cannot do without honeybees, because it's not just that the products we are after from different life forms, they are an integral piece into an ecosystem, and if you remove that piece, it's going to fall, the whole ecosystem is going to fall apart. So it's not, it's very so I don't agree with the view of looking at different life forms or of different species just because we need a certain product from them. That product is a byproduct, which we have learned to use or we like it. But every life form has a purpose on this planet, and it's embedded into a very intricate web of life. And the moment you will remove 1, 2, 3, 4, everything is going to fall apart. So everybody is important and is equally important. Just like humans, honeybees are as important as we are. But
so
for
actually,
our purpose, we will have the technology to produce those things.
In agriculture, in India or maybe in other countries as well, they use pesticides, right? So honeybees and quechua, what is the English name? I forget the name. So these both
Earthworms.
are earthworms. So both are not surviving in the land. Means earthworms are not surviving in the land, and honeybees are not surviving. So as an example, in my farm they use pesticides, so I can't find any earthworms. I have never seen honeybees around. So how did they get the food or any kind of grain or whatever they are planting? So maybe it's these are hybrid seeds. They use it, so they don't need any kind of these animals or insects. Pollination. Yes, pollination. That's a word.
Yeah, no, I agree, and it is a sad thing, and that is what needs to change, because with the new, like for example, BT cotton is a really good example. BT cotton was introduced, and that before BT cotton, there used to be 11 sprays on the cotton crop, right?
Yeah.
Which is like a lot of poison that is going into the soil and also into that field. So after the introduction of BT cotton, which is hybrid seeds now, the insects are, American bollworm is not able to kind of do the damage, so the farmer doesn't need to spray the pesticide. So that is a really good outcome, and then the whole ecosystem can exist in collaboration, but yet the farmer is getting the benefit of doing that farming and not getting destroyed by the American bollworm. So I think that we need to look for more opportunities and more that kind of a technological revolution, and I don't agree with the fact, yes, pesticides is doing a huge damage to our ecosystems. We need to stop, and we need to have better options available.
And actually in India, there are a lot of, I don't know, it's a kind of community building. They are trying to conserve the seeds, which are ancient seeds, which are not hybrid. So there are a lot of organization try to replicate and store this kind of seed and distribute to others, that the hybrid seeds creating cancer, but our ancient seeds are not creating. So they have lots of variety of this kind of seeds available. So actually, there are two kind of people are going together, and one is kind of organic, one is kind of inorganic. So people who are doing organic, they are also facing issues because there are a lot of insects. They are creating problems. So whatever the output they want, they don't get it. They need to increase the price of whatever they left.
No, I agree with you, and there's two different philosophies of the school of thoughts, the organic versus the in like the other stuff. But to be honest, what is organic? Organic is trying to protect the ecosystem in there so that you don't spray it, but the crop itself learn to come out and have a good produce for the farmers. So because it doesn't have that level of good yield, so the prices really go up. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's what the organic is doing. And whether is it having a great impact on the farmer's life? I don't think so. But it is definitely making a, why can't we do, you know, if I think looking back and moving forward, that would be a really good balance or an opportunity for us. For example, we've got all these amazing germplasms. India is a very wealthy country when it comes to that heritage um, or the biodiversity we've got. We've got 8% of the world's biodiversity, and that those plants or those species have learned to live in the best sync with that particular environment. Okay. So it would be lovely to sort of go and use the technological advancements to really unpack that at the very basic blueprint of life level, which is DNA, which is also called molecular characterization of the germplasms, and then see, wow, we've got all of this. This bit would best survive in this particular environment or the region. This bit would best survive in this particular environment or the region. And then we've got these kind of regions where none of us original ones will survive, but maybe a combination of a few of them will do really well. And then you cross them, and then that is the region that you adapt it. And that way, what you would do is you will learn from, what you've got, and you will have a way forward for a better income for the farmers who are giving their land. Because land, I consider land, water, every piece of input you've given in to grow that is a resource, and we have very limited resources and a big population to feed. So we need to find somewhere a balance and strike that balance, that we keep our heritage, but we use our heritage in the best possible region, environment that is suited to it, rather than it's like forcing a square peg in a round hole. What would be the success rate in there? So it's just strategically thinking and just shifting that narrative a little bit. And organic is amazing. I love organic, and but it needs to be combined with better ways of doing it.
So actually, in India, the land is also a big issue because one generation, second generation, so 100 acre land divided in five brothers, they divided. So people having very small lands, and as you said, population is very high. So is there any kind of opportunities or trend you have seen that Indian farmers come to Australia, like countries which have big land? They do actually, the labor cost is very high, I guess, and cost of resources is also high, licenses is very high. So the end result, or we can say whatever the crop we will get, is a little bit costly in Australia, but still, is there any kind of opportunity in Australia? Have you seen this kind of work, like migration happen to do just agriculture? Is there any kind of thing you have seen? I have talked with Pendu Australia.
Mintu Brad.
Yes.
Mintu Brad.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he also explained me this thing. So actually, I was looking to your interviews, so I contact him also, and he explained one thing, that in agriculture you have to, if you want to go into agriculture sector, you have to visit your farm every day, so you can procure whatever the things are going to affect your plants. So that one key, because in our region, so I'm also from farmer family. So our family members are not interested in farming. They have land, but they outsource it. So people, we outsource the other people. They outsource laborers. So two layer of things happen here, because it's very hard work to do farming. So people are living in city. They never go to farms. They just go once or twice in a year to collect money. So he said that if you want to get a good result from your farming, so you need to visit every day. Otherwise, leave it.
Yes.
So that very simple solution, but still very useful.
I think Mintuji is one of the best examples you've already got in touch with in the farming sector and how farming is done in Australia. I have not done farming myself, so I think that he can give the best advice. But if I may give an example here, there was somebody selling grapes, right? And there was like some grapes which were like single, and then there was this whole bunch together. And he was asking 80 rupees per kilo for this one, whereas 50 rupees per kilo for the one. So the customer said, why this is less expensive and this is more expensive? Is this the same variety? He said exactly the same variety, but this one's hold itself together, so the value is higher compared to this one. So that is a really good example here when we talk about small land holdings and compared to how agriculture is done in Australia. So because it's big land holdings, you can do so much more with your land in terms of managing it, and it's much more worth for your money and your time investment and resource investment. But when we have small land holdings, that becomes a bit of an issue. It not just becomes an issue in terms of managing it and getting things done on that, but also when you go to sell it in the market or kind of the procurement and marketing side of the things. So I think this is something that India, and this is not for some big firms to come and purchase the land and do the corporate farming, because it's just like, like a parent, the way a parent knows its child and can look after and care for its child, you can never expect that from, sending your child in a boarding space or a big cooperative space or a foster, right? So Mintuji said it really, really well. Like, if you're farming and if you're not connected to your plants and your crop, you're never going to get the best outcome of it. So I think there has been a lot of talks. I think the small land holding, if can be combined, and if 4 or 6 or 10 farmers can come together and kind of, rather than leasing it single-handedly to many people, if they could come together and actually trying to make, one of them takes responsibility, they can actually rotate it. Like say 10 farmers come together from 1 acre, suddenly it's 10 acres, right? And then they rotate it. 1 year I'll take care of everything. I'll hire the labor. I'll first hand manage it. And then next year you do it. So you sorted. You're only doing it for 1 year in 10 years time. And that's a great way to also educate the next generation. And when there will be a good return on your investment, it turns out to be a good business, and then everybody would want to be part of that as well. So I think something like that is, I'm just thinking loud in here with you. I'm not a farmer, but I think that could be a really good and a beautiful solution.
This is also emerging concept in India. This is called collaborative farming. So few youngsters tried it in South India, some maybe around Hyderabad, and a lot of adopted as actually there is one movie also made from the real story of one software engineer who did this in his farm, collaborative farming. So actually in that movie there is they show what are the issues they face, because a lot of conflict happen between people when you start. So that is the main problem, to keep holding for 10 years.
I think that could be resolved because there could be legalities. So people can actually involve proper professional legal firms to be able to advise them and actually manage the resources and the money, because wherever there is money, there's always going to be, a bit of a conflict. And that's not just in farming, in every single business sector that happens. And if we can do it in other sectors, why can't we do it in the farming? And it is kind of a business, but business with a lot of heart and care and hard work in it. So I did not know about collaborative farming, so I'm going to go read up on that and the stories. So thank you for introducing me to that.
And one more thing that, as an example, a lot of Indian farmers right now, as an example, my uncles are doing farming, but they have no, they didn't take any training or any kind of graduation. So whatever the seed manufacturers sell or pesticide manufacturers sell, or they do whatever they do marketing, they check out the results of few of their friends, or they read some articles on newspaper and take a decision on that. As an example, I try to read some research work from Junagadh University or Anand Agriculture University, but whatever the PhD scholar published on over there, I also didn't get it. So if I didn't get it, how farmers will understand whatever
I agree.
what they are planting in their field? Is it good or bad, or good for environment, bad for environment, or good for their long-term earnings, or whatever the things. So I don't know how to break this layer. I'm also, maybe there is some organization helping to translate this research work for
Yes,
farmer. Maybe
absolutely. So, absolutely, there are. So, if you please look up on the agricultural universities, every state in India has an agricultural university. I come from Punjab Agricultural University, and I know that, we used to host in the university every year, there was a Kisan Mela. And that Kisan Mela was mainly for the purpose of the farmers come to the university, and there's lots of different stalls and stuff where the academics are actually breaking it down to them. But having said that, research papers is not the place to go look for information when you come to the translation. Research papers are always very fundamental science, which will translate into something in the next 20 years or something in general. So the best practices, the farmer booklets which are available through these agricultural universities is the right, because they will talk about all the latest varieties. They will talk about which are the companies you should be going to. They will also compare different kind of varieties and the seeds according to different settings that you might have access to. And then they will talk about the best practices for those particular varieties, that if you're growing this one, this is a high yielding variety, and these are the things as a farmer you need to make sure. You can actually go take your soil and you can get testing done for free, your water samples, all these things are available through the agriculture universities. So please look up the state agriculture university, whichever one it is in your state in India. So India is doing it absolutely amazing. We do not have that level of resources available for farmers here in Australia as they are in India. So I'm very proud. I'm very proud to say that India has done some really good work in this area. Yeah, but it's just, and you could use your channel to spread the word. And
Yeah.
please get in touch with your agriculture university, and you will find lots of resources available for you in your level of understanding that
Understanding.
you can
Regional
apply.
language,
Yes,
basically in regional
in
language as
regional
well.
language. Absolutely. So I have myself written those best practices in Punjabi with the Punjab
Okay,
Agriculture
that's really
University,
nice.
and that is my dad was in army, so I actually did not learn Punjabi as a subject in the school. But when I got selected for the Punjab Agricultural University, the first thing I had to do was go back and learn to translate that into the regional language and write those best practices which are accessible to the farmers. So all the universities, agriculture universities, are doing this incredible work, and I would highly encourage you to reach out.
Yeah, in Gujarat, agriculture, studying agriculture in BSc, MSc or other sector, so girls don't go to study this field, as I told, agriculture, civil, mechanical, they don't to study this kind of field. So but I have seen that in Uttarakhand or Punjab, there are so many women or girls are studying this field of science. So if you want to motivate, what are the benefits in this sector if they study, if you want to give some inputs in that?
Yeah, no, I would say that it is a narrative that needs to change. Sometimes what happens is girls are more oriented, to do the caring jobs because it just comes so naturally to them. So they think that what am I going to do in farming sector, or I don't have the resources or the muscles and things like that. But so I would like to say to those girls that these days the technologies come a long way, and it's actually a really good thing to help us to give us that little edge that we need to sort of get into sectors which are muscle heavy or requires a lot of lifting and things like that. So agriculture sector is not really going into the field and doing the agriculture. If you study agriculture, you can learn how to care for the plants, and also at the same time how to make it into a good sort of a business as well as a good practice, and you can go and teach, and girls are really good at doing that because they care deeply about anything. So agriculture is a really great field for them to come to because it's got so many opportunities. We've
other
got such
than
a huge
field work.
population to feed. Yes. So feeding is not going to only happen by making the roti at home or just kind of feeding your family. Coming into the agriculture, you can actually help meaningfully contribute, feeding the entire nation, feeding the entire world. And how good of an opportunity is that for us to be
Yeah,
able to contribute? And why are we missing out on that?
yeah. So that is the biggest thing they can do. And so actually,
Absolutely.
girls having a fear of going into the field work, to farm in the sunlight. So that's why some girls don't go in the mechanical field as well, civil field as well. So in all, they
No,
need
these
to.
days that has completely changed. I must say that I have been in the agriculture field for over 17 years now, and I have done myself a little bit of a field work, but that is not something that you're expected to do in this area. There is a lot of lab space, there is a lot of technological space, there's a lot of high performance computing and a lot of cool stuff that you can contribute to. And you will find your space, but you need to get in there to find your space or create your space. Yeah. We
Yeah.
can't just sit outside and watch as spectators. To be able to revolutionize any field, you need to get inside it and then change it. And I'm sure that girls are very, very smart and hardworking to find their right space in this sector. And there is a lot of space for them, and there is a lot of requirement of them to join the sector.
So that's really nice motivation for Indian girls, or we can say Gujarati girls. So I guess we have
Absolutely.
discussed so many interesting things, and there are so many other things to talk as well, but maybe some other time, because I have some questions related to DNA Zoo as well. But maybe some other time we will talk
We
on that.
can always do a next series to this one. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So
I look
actually,
forward to see this making some difference to the communities in agriculture, and especially I would love to see more Gujarati girls
yeah, get into the
to come
fields,
into the
this field.
agriculture sector.
Yeah,
Yes,
and
go girls! You can do it.
that will motivate boys as well to go into the farming sector, I guess. So it's a kind of
It's a whole
motivation.
circle.
Yeah.
Yes.
So thank you for your
And
time.
our next generation, our young
Yeah.
generation is very creative and very
Yes.
innovative.
Yeah,
And more
that's
of
totally
these
true.
people will join. They will transform the sectors, and that is exactly what is waiting to happen right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, thanks for doing this series. I
Yeah.
think you're doing a great job, and this is a very creative way of thinking how to reach many people and
Yeah.
inspire them.
So thank you for your time, and all the best for your all future research work and DNA Zoo projects and open source kind of projects. So all the best.
Thank you. Thank
Take
you so
care.
much. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah.